What's up, guys? Diagnosing a fuel gauge not working on a 98 Dodge 2500 with a Cummins. So you don't have to use this kind of tool. I do it just so I can send it to my customers and show better proof. They can actually see it better, you know. So really all you need is a multimeter, but I have it hooked up to my scope right now. It's reading 5 volts. That's the yellow number there. I got it hooked up. Got my wires running up to the sending unit. I'm on the driver's side. You go right above the frame by the front shackle. And there we go. I looked up schematics on Direct Hit, Identifix, whatever you want to call it. It's prong 2 and 3 there. The light blue and white, I believe, is the power, and I think it's light brown and black is the ground. You can see how I have it orientated there. So when I went to check this thing out, he said the fuel gauge isn't working, it's staying on E. Well, I seen that this red pin was out and it was already unplugged. So I suspect he has been looking at it, or someone has been looking at it at some time. Well, I just plugged it in, and you can see exactly where I plugged it in. Went from 6 volts down to nothing. 0 volts. Now that could be normal operation. I don't suspect it is because it goes all the way to 0 volts, but could be, or it could be that there's resistance on the power side not letting enough amperage to go through that wire to support the load, or there could be a ground issue. I'm trying to get this thing to plug in good, and I can't get it to plug in good. I don't see any corrosion in the connector at all. I'll get this thing plugged back up and get back with you. Well, I think I might have boo-boo. When I plugged this in, I think that the back probes came out of the back of the connector, and that's why it did not read. Because right now it is reading 5 volts. Hopefully you can read that. So it is reading 5 volts, but disconnected, connected, no change. So I know I'm getting 5 volts back here, and I know I'm getting the ground at the harness. With it plugged in, it isn't changing anything. So now my next step is to test resistance of the actual sending unit and see if it's complete open circuit. If it's going to be a complete open circuit, it's going to need a sending unit. We have the proper voltage, we have the proper ground. When I plug it in, no change. So I'm going to check out the sending unit, see if it's an open circuit, and if so, that's going to be what it needs. So to check the resistance of the sending unit, you don't need anything fancy. Just an ohm meter. Got this one off Amazon for like $60. And I'm putting it on the 2 middle prongs. There's 4 prongs in there. The 2 middle ones go to the fuel sending unit. Nothing. Not a thing. Complete open circuit. So I would believe that it needs a sending unit. But before I tell the customer that I know the issue is a sending unit on a 98 Dodge 2500, I'm going to confirm that the rest of the circuit and the gauge is in proper working order. The last thing you want to do is prove that you have determined what's wrong with the truck, fix the repairs, and then come to find out there's more wrong with the truck. So let's confirm the rest of the circuit is good, and then let the customer know what we have found. I'm going to look up on All Data or Identifix, whatever you would use, look it up. I'm going to look that up and see what I can find for the fuel level sending unit resistance range. Hopefully it shows that for a 98 Dodge. Hopefully I can find something. Alright, so I found this. As fuel level increases, the float arm move up. This decreases the sending unit resistance. As fuel level decreases, the float and arm move down. This increases the sending unit resistance. So it's reading E, so it's sensing that there's high resistance for it to stay reading E, or the fuel gauge does not work. One or the other. It also says on here that the PCM uses input from the fuel gauge sending unit, and it'll message indicating the fuel level is below an eighth tank of a full tank for more than 10 seconds, and that is when it turns on the low fuel warning lamp. When you look up the parts, a lot of times it will give you the ohm range, full to empty, for a full or for a fuel sending unit. I couldn't find that on my software. So what I'll do now is I'll unplug the sending unit, and I have a handy dandy tool, this, so I can plug up my probes for my multimeter up here and turn the resistance up. Pretty handy tool. Let me show you what I found here. So I forget if this is Napa or O'Reilly's, but it shows empty resistance 220, full resistance 20. So I can use this tool, and you can tell this makes it go up in increments of 1. That makes it go up in increments of 10, 100, so on. So if I just want to do 1, you can hook up the leads here. If I want to do, say, 12, you could put this on 2, put your leads right there, and put that one on 1, because it's going to make it go increments of 10. So we're looking at 20 to 220. So I can just go 20 ohms, hook up a lead here and over here, and see what that reads right there. This 20 ohms should read a full tank. 220 ohms should read empty. So normally I wouldn't jump straight to this, but given that it's a 98 and I don't have that much service information, I'm going to jump straight to it. Because if I jump straight to this and I test this out with this resistance block, put the resistance on it, and the fuel gauge works, no brainer, sending unit's bad. If I do this and it does not make the gauge work, we could still have an issue with the gauge. It could be sending 5 volts back there instead of 12. A whole lot of things could happen here. It goes through the PCM, so there could even be a fault. But I'm going to jump to this, see what happens. Alright, so I got it connected. I got it back probed in the connector in the middle 2 spots, unplugged, and I have these leads connected to my resistance block. Now, these are all on 0 except for this one. This one's at 20. Remember, it's in increments of 10. So I got that one set on 20. That should represent a full tank. So now I'm going to lower this down off the lift. Well, not off of it, but lower down the lift. And I'm going to turn the key on and see what the gauge does. That should be a full tank. I love when a plan comes together. Alright, so 20 should be a full tank. 220 should be on empty. So let's go to half tank. Instead of 220, we'll go to, say, 120. And this will just make sure that the gauge works all the way through. On newer cars, usually there's a scan tool and it'll give you a gauge sweep where you can make it go from empty to full, and it does a gauge test. And you'll see if it's working or not. This is an older truck. It don't work like that. We can do the same thing with the resistance that we know that it needs from the sending unit because of the information we have now. So I'm going to go back and turn that up to 120, see if it goes to half. Then I'm going to go to 220 and see if it goes to E. Alright. You see what I'm working with here? Let me turn this around. Alright. So, we're going to go to 120. I love that tool. Oh. Pour this thing back down. Alright. Small garage problems. Alright. Here we go. Voila! Let's see if I can do it without lowering it down. Oh yeah. Aha! 220. Is it slow? Yeah, it's slow. It's controlled by the computer. The computer usually won't make the gauge move all the time. Otherwise, whenever you're driving down the road up hills, it would be moving all the time. It's a pretty slow learner. You change it, you gotta let it go. You'd wear out fuel gauges if it wasn't. So there we go, we know it works. Holes, that tested the whole circuit. So now we know, needs a fuel sending unit. Fixed.